concept of cohesion or coherence in the Quran. The idea of cohesion in the Quran is not new. Earlier commentators paid attention to it, but none of them devoted himself to study the phenomenon thoroughly in detail. It was left to a scholar in India who was interested to present the Quran as a book of marvelous arrangement and beautiful style. That man called Hamid Farahi, who died in 1930. He got his education first from the traditional schools and then went to Aligarh Muslim University, and there he came to know about the discussions of Orientalists about the Quran, and he was disturbed by the claim of Western scholars that there was no cohesion in the Quran, and its verses and chapters were put together without any systematic order, without any systematic arrangement. So he embarked on studying the Quran and exploring the connection between the verses and the chapters. He devoted his life for this task and then wrote number of small books to put his ideas in them. And then he made following conclusion. These conclusions he made: first, that the cohesion, or what he called Nazm, he gave a name, Nazm. The name Nazm was also used by some early scholars, but he made it a point, a term which runs in all his writing. So we could be translated as cohesion or coherence, the same. So he said that the cohesion guides to the content and the main topic under discussion of any surah. And if a person fails to realize this nazm, he will definitely fail to discover the real message of the Quran. This was his idea. And then he also said that the cohesion determines the exact meaning of a verse, which may have multiple options, but if you know the nazm, you can achieve the real meaning. There will be no need for going to any other option. He also said that the cohesion puts things in their proper perspective. Without understanding the cohesion, many things will remain unclear to the reader. And then cohesion is the key to many hidden treasures and the wisdom of the Quran. It is also one of the secrets of its miraculous quality, ijaz, which is known as ijaz. He also said cohesion makes us understand the meaning of the verses that are repeated. There are so much repetition in the Quran. So to understand this repetition, we have to know the cohesion, to know the nazm, as he said. And then also he said it helps to understand the occasions of revelation, asbabul nuzul. And also he said that only through cohesion one will be able to judge the reports about the interpretation of the Quranic verses, the one which are reported from the companions or from the Prophet himself. So it is the nazm. How nazm can be discovered? So he said that there is a central theme running in all the chapters. He gave it a name called Ammud, pillar. Let's say that discover the Ammud, and then you will be able to understand the meaning of that particular chapter. So Ammud is the basis for understanding the meaning of any chapter in the Quran. There is one thing you must note, that Farai's attempt seems to be based on one idea, that is that the arrangement of surah inside the Quran was done by the Prophet. That is how he is trying to connect each surah with other, which is not a very well unanimously accepted view. Zamakhshari or Suyuti, two major scholars who wrote about the sciences of Quran, They tell us that some scholars hold that the arrangement of surah inside the Quran is the divine work. But there are others who believe that it is the work of the companions who put the Quran in its final shape. So it was not unanimously agreed. But now in the modern time, we find that Farahi and Islahi as well really believe, his disciple, we will come to Islahi, believe that this was done by the Prophet. I mean, what goes against this argument is the fact that many companions had their own mushaf. They had made their own arrangement, which the arrangement of surah in them are quite different from the mushaf, from the copy, from the book we are using today. Anyhow, Farahin realized that discovering Ammud is not easy. So he suggested that a person has to read and read again and again the surah in order to discover the theme which is repeated there and the one which stands as a center point. Only then he can proceed. Anyhow, he could not put his theories in practice. He wrote tafsir for the smaller chapters of the Quran, from the end of the Quran. You know, the smaller chapters have no problem. They are small and usually they deal with one topic. So there is no problem. The problem comes in big surah of Medinan period, which contain number of topics among them. How can we connect the verses there? Right? That was problem. So of course, Farahi did not write the tafsir of all the Quran. It was left to his disciple called Amin Ahsan Islahi, who wrote a full tafsir called Tadabbur Quran, contemplation of the Quran. And it was completed in 1980s. And Islahi outlined in his introduction his method of tafsir, his dealing with the Quran. And he says that there are three basic sources to understand the Quran. Internal one, that is the Quran itself, and the Nazm. He uses the same idea which Farahi had in his mind. Of course, he was taught by Farahi, he was influenced by Farahi. So he said that the Nazm is an internal source or internal tool to understand the Quran. And then language of the Quran. He said that these are three internal means for understanding the Quran. And then Nazm, of course, is the most important one according to him, as it was to Farahi as well. Now he says that, well, how to discover Nazm? He said again that we go to Ammud, we go to the center point in the surah and then do it. And then Islahi brought some new theories, which Farahi, of course, did not speak about, or he spoke but did not insist on them. But Islahi, of course, first is that he said that Quran is to be divided, or it was revealed in 7 parts. Each part having some Makkan surah and some Madinan surah. And then arbitrarily, we have no evidence. Remember, we must ask for evidence. There is no evidence to show that that Quran first was divided into 7 sections. We have, of course, a recommendation by the Prophet ﷺ that the whole Quran should be recited in 7 days. Fine? So it could be divided into 7 parts. But whether Allah revealed it with this intention, we can't know. So he said that each surah, each section will start with a Makkan surah and end with a Madinan surah. Each one. This is very arbitrary. How can he decide? How can he know? But anyhow, in this way, he divided Quran into 7 parts. So the first section starts with Fatiha, which is considered to be Makkan, and ends with Surah 5, which is a Madinan. Then the second part starts from 6 and ends at 9. The third one starts from 10 and ends with 24. The fourth one starts with 25 and ends with 33. The next one starts with 34 and ends with 49. And the sixth one starts with 50, surah number 50, and ends with 62. And the last one starts with 67 and ends with 114. This is how divided. And then after that, he said that each group has a central theme which runs in those surah which fall under that group. And then he divided in that way, that the first group has a Sharia and law as its basic theme, central item. The second one has Islam as the religion of Ibrahim. Again, I mean, this is something really which is an invention of Islahi himself. We don't have any proof for these things. And it doesn't work, as a matter of fact, in understanding, comprehension of the Quran fully. Then the third group has the central theme as the struggle between truth and falsehood and the divine law concerning it. The fourth one revolves around prophecy. And then fifth one is talking about Tawheed. I don't know why he brought Tawheed so late. And the fifth one is, we said Tawheed, and the sixth one is the hereafter. And the last one, seventh one, is warning to the unbeliever. So this is how he did. And then another thing he says, and then he takes this idea from the words of the Quran in surah number 15, ayah number, yes, ayah number 87. Surah number 15, ayah number 87, where Allah says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنِ الْعَظِيمِ. Means that indeed we have given you 7 of Mathani and the great Quran. Now, according to large number of commentators, Masani, which is plural of Masna, means things that are repeated. And that refers to opening chapters of the Quran, which is repeated in every prayer, and that has 7 verses. And this has been supported by a hadith, which is authentic. And the Prophet himself said that As-Sab'ul Masani wal Qur'an al-Azim is Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran, which I have been given. But Farahi, by the way, Islahi doesn't pay much attention to hadith. His attitude to hadith agrees with those people who reject any authority to hadith, though he did not say it. He never said it. But his attitude really implies that in his tafsir or in all other writings. And also one thing is to be noted, that when Islahi makes up his mind and draws a conclusion, he does not pay any attention to any evidence against it and tries to present his theory as a fact that must be accepted. You know, in his tafsir, he uses such expressions. He uses such expressions. It is obvious. It is logical. It is illogical to think. I mean, maybe to him, but maybe others are not convinced. But anyhow, he goes like that. So he continues in this way, he continued in this way, and then put all the Quran, and interpreted all the Quran in this way. There are about 7-8 volumes of the tafsir which he printed. Now he said that there are some external means, external tools which could be used in the interpretation of Quran. There he mentions Sunnah, but he said it must be mutawatir. It must be very popular, mashhur. We don't know whether he takes the term as defined by the scholars of hadith, which is very logical, or he just wants to give his own definition. So popular or mashhur to him will mean something which everybody knows. But it may not be the same definition given by the scholars of hadith. So this is one. And then he said that reports from the Prophet and the companions. He doesn't mention the word hadith or sunnah. No, it's reports from the Sahaba and Prophet. He puts them together. Then asbabun nuzul, occasions of revelation. He considered it as a wasila, as a tool. And then the books of tafsir. And then the earlier books, divine scriptures. And then the history of Arabs. These to him are the external devices which can help a person to understand the Quran. We find that he doesn't use. Sometimes he refuses very authentic tradition and does not pay any attention, does not give a dime to it, we can say. Like the one about Fatiha. And then there is a case, he interprets by his own understanding. So he came to the idea of stoning to death, which is not mentioned in the Quran, by the way. The punishment for fornication or for zina, which includes both adultery and fornication, mentioned in the Quran is that those engaged in it should be given 100 lashes. Then it is in hadith that if they are married, or if one of them is married, he should be stoned to death. That is how the Prophet ﷺ prescribed, and it was followed. It has been accepted. All Muslim individuals, community, the whole Muslim community accepts this as a principle, as a prescribed punishment for adultery. And it is based on marriage, as it is defined in Hadith. Now Islahi makes a new principle. He said that it is not to be based on marriage, but it is based on frequency of the act from the person. If he is engaged again and again, he has been habitual doing this, then he should be stoned to death. And if not, then the normal punishment of 100 lashes can be given. But the cases in the time of the Prophet ﷺ are of those who committed it for the first time, and they came and then confessed. Now those people, really the Prophet wanted to turn them away. That it is how it is mentioned in the books of Hadith. But Islahi, in order to strengthen his theory, he said no. The man called Ghamidi, the man who was there, he said that he was a very criminal personality. He was a man who was always after women, a womanizer, whose business was just to follow women and to force them to this. That is really very bad. There is nothing mentioned in the account, in the books which give the accounts of companions about that person to be bad, or to be the way Islahi mentioned. He uses foul language against him. Again, without any evidence. How can you say that that person was so bad? And it was not that the people saw him doing the act, and the witnesses, the quorum of witnesses was completed, because in the case of adultery or fornication, 4 witnesses are required. And these witnesses should have seen the man in action. This is very important, that the people must have seen the two people involved in action. That is very difficult to establish, really, as a matter of fact. So he was not seen in that way, but he himself comes to the Prophet and then confesses that he has done so. But Islahi says no. This punishment of stoning will be given to a person who is committed to this crime, who is very, very habitual to that. He is used to it, doing it again and again. If not, then whether he is married or not, he can be given normal punishment of 100 lashes. So sometimes he just goes like that. And there are many new things, many ideas which you find in his tafsir. Say for example, written book in surah number 52, Wattur wa kitabi mastur. Quran says that written book, documented book. He says that this refers to Torah. Well, why Quran didn't mention the name? Why it should refer like that in a vague way? Mastur, book written. So he said no. And he says that there was no book before Musa, written book given to any prophet before Musa. So he makes a claim. Also the other claim which seems to be very funny and unrealistic is that the people of Noah lived in Hijaz and they spoke Arabic. I mean, we know by the people, the historians of languages, Semitic languages, that they say that Arabic really came into existence only before Islam by 150 years or 200 years. It is a new language compared to Hebrew, Aramaic and Syriac. It is really derived from them. But to Islahi, it is a very old book. That this was spoken by the people of Noah, who were very early in time. But thus he claims, again as I said, that you cannot challenge him. He wouldn't listen to you and he cannot provide any evidence. Also another thing, he believed that the surah number 111, which speaks about Abu Lahab, the uncle of the Prophet, who was a staunch enemy of him and followed his nephew everywhere where he went to preach Islam. And even, tried to create problem for him, and his wife put thorns in his way, in the way of the Prophet. Now he says that this surah is revealed, number 111, is speaking about him, that they are going to face the consequences of their bad action. He said that it was revealed in Medina, while all other commentators believe that it was revealed in Makkah and exposed the man there and then when he existed. He died at the time of Badr. He did not go to Badr, but he died at that very particular time. So he believes it was revealed in Medina. And mainly he believes that it was at the time when the Prophet became victorious and it was very obvious that Islam is going to dominate. Most important and amazing thing is concerning surah number 105, where Quran mentioned the story of attack by Abraha, by Abyssinian governor on Makkah, in order to destroy Kaaba. So Quran says that the people came with an elephant and Allah destroyed them by flying birds. Now many people take it as a miracle, that the bird which were flying, they dropped stones, and sometimes they give description of big stone which fell on the people and completely destroyed them. Some modern scholars will say that Quran making reference to germ, mainly germ of smallpox, and they have some historical evidence that smallpox was seen in Makkah in the first time in that particular year. And of course, in the beginning, when there was no medicine, it was very, very dangerous and destructive disease, which can wipe out the community. And I have seen in my childhood really it affecting like that. So some modern people take it to be like that. Anyhow, Quran does not speak very explicitly what was the object which destroyed the army of Abraha. So the people just take it like that the Quraysh Quraysh, tribe of Quraysh, the one who were the custodian of Kaaba, they found out that they are not able to fight and encounter Abraha's army. So they moved to the mountains and left Kaaba to Allah, to their Lord. Islahi, and before him Farahi, by the way, they believed that how Quraysh could be so cowardly to go and hide in mountain. No, they fought guerrilla war. They went to the mountain, then they pelted stones on Quraysh on Abraha's army, and they were destroyed. And then, but there is no mention of Quraysh in that particular surah. The word Quraysh, the mention of Quraysh is not there. When the pronoun, it says tarmihim. They drop a stone. And before that is tayr, birds, flying object. They are the one which pelted, which dropped a stone on the army. They say, no. Though the noun is not mentioned, but the pronoun can be used sometime without noun. Yes, it is okay. It is done in Arab, but Quran does not do it. There is not a single example when Quran has used a pronoun without earlier mentioning the noun to which it makes reference. So there is no, as he said, that Quran is one of his source for understanding. The Quran does not help here. So this is very unique theory. I mean, why Quraysh were not very brave people, by the way. They were not very strong because they were rich. And remember, when the people become wealthy, they lose their strength, they lose their bravery. It was well known by Arabs as well. So Quraysh, of course, and that it was impossible for them to meet an organized army with their own people. And what they did was really very logical and reasonable thing, just to take resort in the mountain and see what happens. But they say, no. They fought a guerrilla war. This is another theory which Al-Islahi mentioned. And then another thing we note in Islahi's tafsir, in his that he always tried to identify things which have been left unidentified in the Quran. Earlier commentators said that since Allah kept them hidden, we have no duty to go and discover them and to find them who they were. Quran mentions here and there some people, some town, some incident, but we are not required to find out where the incident took place, who were the people, and who were the community which were destroyed. But Islahi, embarks on doing that. And then he doesn't accept a hadith which speaks about particular incident. Say, for example, there is a hadith concerning surah number 85, Ashabul Ukhdud. And Prophet mentioned that this happened in an earlier community where a king tortured people, killed them, slaughtered them, and threw their bodies into a ditch. Islam doesn't pay any attention to that at all. So where there is a hadith, some authentic account, he ignores. But he embarks on mentioning things which we are not required to mention. Anyhow, he tried his best, but what is, even this, there was another thing I forgot to mention, that Islahi's interpretation of masna, which means two. The word masna in Arabic means two. So his interpretation of that word, as occurred in the Quran, sab'am min al-masani, 7 of masani, he takes that word to mean that every surah has been revealed in pair. It has got its twin. It's a kind of colleague or something, a part, So when a surah is mentioned, then the next one is its twin. But he does not follow this idea throughout his tafsir. many surah are left just like that, without saying anything about the connection between the two. And sometimes he brings a third surah after it is all right. He says that sometimes a surah mentions something in brief, then the following surah gives detail. It may be true in some surah, but not always. And then he mentioned the third one as a supplement to those first ones. So in this way he continues. But it doesn't work. He has not explained. A number of surah have been left without showing its twin, its partner, as you say, from a number of them, about 27 chapters. He left just like that. So his theory is not comprehensive. He did not include and did not do anything. Anyhow, he was the champion of the idea of cohesion in the Quran until now. And the idea, of course, was fancied by Western scholars, and many people embarked on doing. It is all right. The idea also attracted Muhammad Abdul and Rashid Reza. But they thought that it was not possible to link each surah with the other. They believed, of course, that every verse inside the surah is connected with the other. But to connect the surah with the following one is not easy, and we don't think that it is required. Also, we learn from the Quran that human being is created without sin. He comes to this world completely plain, with no anything attached to him. It is just unlike Christianity, which believes that since Adam committed a mistake in the very beginning, all his children, they carry that element of sin with them. Islam does not believe in it. Islam's teaching is, as the Quran put it, as a matter of fact, Quran has 5 rights on us, or we have 5 duties concerning the Quran. The first one is to believe in it. That is the book of Allah. And Quran mentions it in many places, that those people who believe in the book. This is part of Iman, that they must believe in the book. Here the book is the Quran. Secondly, that it should be dealt with respect, treated with respect, because it is the book of Allah. It contains the word of Allah. So that is why you say that ablution is necessary, and the person must be in pure condition, complete clean, before approaching it. So giving respect to the Quran is also a duty which a man owes to the Quran. And then thirdly, the third duty which a person has to the Quran is to recite it, to read it. That is the book which has come here to be read, to be recited. So Muslims have a duty to the Quran, and that is to recite it, to read it. And the fourth duty is to contemplate, to pay attention to what it says, to know its meaning, and then to understand its command. We are told that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was reading the Quran, anytime he came to a verse which was speaking about good tidings, he stopped there and asked Allah to give him that good thing. And anytime he passed by a verse which included threat and warning, he stopped there and asked Allah to protect him from that punishment. So this is how a person should read, must understand the message of the Quran. That is the most important thing. And then the last one, once he understood it, he had to follow it. He had to abide by its instruction. The Quran has come to teach people how to behave. So Quranic verses include all the teachings, all the instructions, how to live life here on this earth. So one has to understand and follow